Good evening. I'm Andy Stack, Chair of the CA Board of Directors. I want to thank you all for attending this work session. Please remember that our work session is being live streamed. The agenda, the background information is available on the CA's board page, and I would encourage everyone to follow along using those documents. For some of the rules, please mute your mics if you're not speaking. Be courteous to each other. Speak clearly and slowly so that everyone can hear you. When you do speak, first state your name so everyone knows who is speaking. And for the board members in particular, please use the chat feature to be recognized so I have kind of a list of who has questions or comments. I will introduce each item on the agenda, and I'm now going to call the roll of board members. Janet.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Renee.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Shari.
Present.
Alan.
Here.
Dick. Dick, you're muted.
My little microphone didn't show up. Yes, I'm here.
Nancy.
Here.
Jenny.
Here.
Jess.
Here.
Andy. He's here. All right. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I know that Jenny wants to make a.
So moved. I want to amend it then. So moved.
Is there a second? Lynn. Okay.
Second.
All right.
Okay. Andy,
Yes,
I'd like
yes.
to make an amendment, a quick amendment that this amendment, if it passes, wouldn't be heard obviously tonight. It would be heard at the next board meeting. So it basically says the Columbia, I move that we have this resolution. The Columbia Association Board of Directors supports the grant application submitted by the Inner Arbor Trust to Howard County for funding for conservation landscaping in Symphony Woods adjacent to county roads for stream restoration of the stream in the northeast corner of Symphony Woods, close to the newly relined Symphony Woods Road, and for the design of an all abilities intergenerational ecological play structure.
Jenny, why don't we just add item 4G, Inner Arbor Trust County Grant Request
Second.
in 5 minutes? Okay. Is there any objection to that? And then we can get into
Thank you.
that discussion. All right. Okay. With that change, is there any further changes? If not, I'm going to take the roll call vote. So let me ask, is there any objection to the agenda with the addition of that one item? No, I will say everyone's happy with it. Then we'll go with yes. Okay. Residents speak out. There were no residents signed up for tonight. So we're going to move right into the work session topics. And the first topic is discussion of new town planning and envisioning report. Milton, is there anything you'd like to say?
Just very quickly, there's a document that has been shared with actually the link to that document, because it is a substantial document. But tonight, Kristen will be sharing her screen. She has an overview of those 7 workshops and what we got out of that, working with the board, some senior staff and representatives from the village associations, and also give you an idea of what we plan to do for our next steps with that information, and also what we see as our role. When I say our, I'm talking about CA and the Columbia community and the ongoing general plan update by the county.
Thanks, Milton. Kristen, are you ready?
I am. I'm going to try to share my screen with you here.
And I will remind all the board members, please use chat, because once the screen gets shared, I can't see many of you.
Are you seeing it? Oh, here it comes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it taking up the whole screen for you?
No, we see your regular PowerPoint, not the slideshow.
No, you do.
Is your slideshow open?
It is.
Looks like it's on another screen. You may need to drag it back to the screen you're looking at. You're now moving the PowerPoint.
I'm moving it. You can see me moving it.
You are moving the PowerPoint itself.
Oh no. Let me
If you go into slideshow, I think you can take off your second monitor and then it'll just show on your first monitor.
oh gosh. Okay. That'll take a sec.
Up in the menu at the top of PowerPoint, it says slideshow, and in that part of the ribbon should be about your second monitor, presenter view.
How about now?
We're still seeing your PowerPoint.
Right. Well, I'm almost going to say that we might just have to, you know what I can do? I can share with you the,
It also is
hang
that your
on.
PowerPoint isn't maximized. Let's just maximize your PowerPoint.
Hang on. Sorry, guys. I thought I had this down pat. I am going to actually just open up the PDF version of this, which I think might work better. All right, this is my alternate attempt here. Let's see. Is this even slightly better?
A little bit.
Well,
Is it maximized?
it is maximized.
You can use your mouse and increase the size of the screen for individuals who would like to make it larger on their own screen. You won't see people on the side anymore.
Sorry, everybody. I thought I had this under control, but perhaps not. I'm just going to move along, and if there's anything that you can't see well, just feel free to interrupt me. So you all received the final document that our consultants prepared for the Newtown Planning and Visioning Guide. I sent that out at the end of January, so hopefully you found some time to take a look at that. As just kind of a flashback for all of you, over a year ago, we prepared an RFP for a project to find consultants to help guide us and focus our priorities for the future of the Columbia community. And this was in advance of the county's general plan update. We knew at that time that they were going to be embarking on the HOCO by Design project, and we wanted to be able to prepare ourselves and to prepare you for the conversations that would go on with regard to that. And some have already started, and as you know, there will be more coming up with specific focus on Newtown. The RFP informed the consultants that it would be necessary that CA leadership understand the planning vision that shaped Columbia, have a knowledge of modern planning principles and practices, and a readiness to apply these concepts to the Columbia community where appropriate. We wanted to be informed on the planning principles and practices that are applicable to redevelopment and reinvestment and the preservation of mature master plan communities, which is where we find ourselves in Columbia today. And also to understand the constraints and impact of regulations. So that was last February. We received the RFP applications, and then COVID happened. We had to kind of quickly adjust, and were able to, fortunately, have this undertaking go virtual. And we had 7 meetings in 6 months. You, along with village representatives and some of the senior leadership team, met for virtual meetings, which I'm sure you remember well, on a variety of topics. And I've listed some of them here: diversity, open space, housing, village centers, corridors, governance, issues and opportunities. And we had lots of discussion and several surveys and what we would call homework that you all participated in. We didn't have unanimous consensus on everything, but we did get a general sense of where swaths of the group stood, where your focus was, what your priorities were. And after we had those conversations, 7 focus areas were established that led the way to our strategies. And those focus areas were diversity, open space, civic engagement, housing, transportation, redevelopment, and governance. And as a result of the process, the consultants pointed out that the whole process that we went through would have little value if not followed by actions. Primarily, as you all know, the point of this was applicability to the GPU process. And for example, that includes housing distribution, the potential for planning studies, new policies such as open space policies, but also this would have applicability to the NT zoning. As a year and a half, 2 years from now, we expect that will be a topic of conversation before the county. So the actual document, you may have noticed this as you were reading through it, but I just wanted to walk you through the format. Everything is organized by topic, those 7 topics that I read to you just moments ago. So on this example, the topic is diversity. Then there's a subtopic and context. And then there are a list of strategies, sometimes a handful, sometimes more, as to how that topic should be, guidance for that topic as we pursue the general plan update, interactions with the county, and where we want to focus our efforts and how we want to advocate for Columbia in these conversations that are going on around the general plan. So I can't read through the whole document with you, but I just wanted to give you sort of one example from each of the topics. So the first topic that I've picked out is diversity. And here, for example, we have a social equity goal. The founding principles of equal access to housing, education, and social services have been and will continue to be endorsed as the goal of CA and the community at large. Now, bear in mind, all of these, the language in all of these was pretty well vetted by you and the village participants. None of this should look new to you. A lot of it was wordsmithed by our very group. And while you personally may not necessarily agree with every single one here, we did have the sense that the group at large was favorable to the guidance that we've included in this report. The second one I have here is open space. So, new or redevelopment should be planned in context and provide continuity with existing open space. I think we pretty much all agree that the open space is a primary characteristic and asset in Columbia. Civic engagement. I'm not going to read through these word for word for you, but an effort to educate the populace about Columbia and its historic importance. Housing, a village center focused area plans. Transportation. Projects within Columbia should embrace a holistic transportation vision. Redevelopment, use the county general plan update as a vehicle for putting forth a housing distribution plan for Columbia that identifies locations that are a good fit for the community. And governance, projects within Columbia should embrace, again, a holistic transportation. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. Oh, no, that's right. A holistic transportation vision of maximum internal trip capture. So those are just examples. There are so many that I can't possibly walk through all of them with you tonight, but I wanted to mostly make sure that you were aware of and comfortable with the way that they're laid out and how we came to them. Again, we came to them through many, many discussions with the group, the surveys that you took, all kind of coalesced into these main points. The next steps is what we're going to use this document to do and how we're going to do that. First, let me say that we intend to share this guide with the county, the DPZ. I imagine probably with somebody in the in Dr. Ball's office, and so that they are aware of where our priorities lie, and they are not surprised by any comments that CA makes going forward. Oh, I'm sorry, I am skipping ahead of myself. Keep that in mind, what I just said, and let me take a step back. The plan did make some recommendations, and these include the potential for future additional studies. This would include a Columbia master plan, Newtown zoning restructuring, which is part of the zoning rewrite that we see coming in the coming years. Potential other master plans, such as a transportation master plan, an open space study. These are all at the end of the document listed as potential next steps should we choose to do so. And we can look into the possibility of those and what that would entail in more detail if any of them jump out at you as being especially significant or urgent, shall we say. We can certainly talk about this. The list is rather extensive, and it would probably not be necessary to do all of them because there's a lot of overlap, but ones that jump out at you as being especially important, we can certainly have those conversations among ourselves and also with the county. Bear in mind that there is generally a cost to each of them that we would need to prioritize. Now here's what I was getting to earlier, next steps. As I said, the guide would be shared with the county. It will, myself and Jessica or anybody else from CA who is engaging with the county will use the information in this guide to advocate for CA, to contribute to the conversations that the county is having and the charrettes that the county is having about the general plan update and the future of Columbia. If we're ever, in the room and we can point to this document and say, we're not just throwing these recommendations out off the cuff. These were decisions and priorities that were discussed within Columbia and with the board of directors, or with Columbia Association and the board of directors, that have been fleshed out quite well, even if it's not a unanimous consensus. It's still something that has been thought through. Additionally, I would suggest that the sentiments of this document are applicable beyond the immediate nature of the general plan update. I think that it would be unfortunate if this document was only useful for the next year as we go through the GPU process. And I think that we can find ways to make it useful going into the future. for all kinds of different land use conversations. The next Planning Advisory Committee meeting is late March. Here I have to be determined, but I'm looking at my calendar now. I believe that it's been scheduled for the 25th. The county has told me that they think that the Newtown charrettes could happen possibly as early as April. To me, that seems soon, but they are the ones who are in charge. So I trust that they know what they're talking about. And as soon as we have dates on that, I will certainly be sharing that with all of you, with our communications and marketing team, with all of the villages. I will make sure that the news of that spreads far and wide once it's made available. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can see you and you can see me. And I would be happy to take any questions or have some discussions about this document and how you see it now that you have it in your hands.
Thanks, Kristen. We have some. Alan has a question or comment.
Kristen, I apologize. I haven't had a chance to really review the document yet. Does it take on the larger question of the CA support for Newtown zoning itself?
Well, Newtown zoning is the step after the general plan update. The general plan update is the document that sets a roadmap and a vision for the county. With that vision, the zoning is how technically that vision comes to life, how that vision is codified, and how that vision, how we really fine tune it. So there are certainly items within this Newtown Planning and Visioning Guide that can be codified. For example, priorities about village centers and open space. We can certainly take those priorities and work with the county to find standards and regulations to realize them when the zoning code is rewritten in another 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, I hear that. And I guess my concern, and I don't know that we can do anything about it tonight, my concern is, as people have heard me say, is if you get to define the terms of the argument, you win the argument. And to the extent that I would want us to really be clear about our support, make sure that this document doesn't leave any wiggle room around that support. So that's something I'll be looking at.
Just for my own clarification, our support, what do you mean by our support? Our support of what?
Of Newtown zoning, not that it can't be improved, but of Newtown zoning as an important part of Columbia's, not just its uniqueness, but its way of carrying out its values.
Well, I think that the content of this guide identifies that which is within Columbia that is unique and that we wish to retain and preserve, and in some cases enhance. Whether or not the label of Newtown has any bearing on that, I suppose is a topic for discussion.
Well, it's not just a label, it's that the word is out pretty much that for many in the county government, Newtown zoning's on the chopping block. And so I think we can't afford to wait until it already is on the chopping block before we act.
I think I may understand what you're saying. What I will respond with is that I think that the guide that has been created shows that the Greater Columbia community is unique, and that zoning should also be unique in order to preserve that. And it's not like a residential zone in other parts of the county and should not be treated as such.
Thanks for listening. I'll be paying attention to this and speaking as
Great.
we go along. Thank you.
Dick? Dick, you're muted. Dick, you're muted.
Okay, because what I said was, Kristen, you've done a great job here. I think you put together a terrific document. I've been following the discussions and everything, and this is beautiful. And to follow up on Alan's concerns, they're concerns I have, and that is that we've got to convince the county to buy into this. And we're up against some pretty formidable opposition. As Alan pointed out, there are a lot of developers who find Newtown zoning to be an infringement on their rights to do whatever they want, and they make some significant campaign contributions. So we're going to have a battle here, and I'm hoping that as the discussion continues, we have a plan for making it clear to the county that this is something we're very, very serious about. Another issue that worries me is I have seen how our local, and we've exchanged emails on this. We've seen how our local planning board has a tendency to, let's say, wobble. And we need to make sure that when this plan, that when a plan is put into effect, that it's pretty clear what can and cannot be done. And we need to have a process that will make sure that the rules are being followed. And as we've discussed, the planning board has been, well, disappointing. The other thing is that Ellicott City has their own plan. The Route 1's got their own plan. I think it's really important that we carve out a Columbia plan. And it should include all of Columbia's geographic area, including the out parcels. Because we got a beautiful thing going here. But as long as there are out parcels where people can do anything they want, we're going to have trouble keeping it a beautiful thing. And I look at strip malls being put on our parkways and some of the other atrocities that we've seen, and I just hope we'll fight very hard to be able to enforce this. Now, when Rouse set up Newtown zoning, he wanted it to be flexible so he would have an opportunity to carry out his vision. And that was great when he was in control of the vision. But, this has been passed down. We have other players in here, and they're taking advantage of some of this flexibility to do things that really violate the Rouse vision. So this is something we have to keep in mind as we pursue this plan and try to promote it. And I think our communications people really have to get behind this too and get the community behind it. And so the politicians know that they're not fooling around with lightweights. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank Kristen and all the other folks involved for producing the report. It's a great summary, and it's great to have it all in one place. That makes it really, really nice. And then the other thing I would just say is, more for Milton, is we do need to publicize that we have this report and make it available on our website so that our community knows, here's our vision. Here's a vision that we've come up with. And so I think that's very important. Shari, and then Jenny, and then Milton.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. I was going to say the very same thing. I was going to say, Kristen, I appreciate your talking about ultimately sharing this guide with the county, but even more important is to be able to share this with our residents. so that they can see the extensive educational process that the board, not only this board, but previous boards have been through. We were talking about this at the BOC meeting, and I have documents going back to 2012, 2014, 2016. We have had not only this latest consulting group, but we have had previous consultants. And I think it would be important to have all of those documents, this report and the other reports that we have looked at, all together, somehow collated together. I know that they're all there at CA. It's a question of where they are. We've been talking about this kind of database for a long time. Maybe that's something that you could take a look at, pulling up those other documents, getting them together to show that there has been some continuity in this process. I think that would be important to see over time. The other thing I was going to say is that one piece that we still haven't completed fully is we undertook a discussion, we started a discussion about district zoning. And this may link very much to what Dick is talking about, that there are specific plans in Ellicott City, Route 1. If we're going to be developing a Columbia master plan, then looking at how district zoning has been done in different places, other planned communities, would be a very important part of this ongoing discussion. And it's something that I think would be important for our residents to know about, and also have an opportunity to weigh in on as we continue these discussions. It's important for folks to know that this guide is not something that has been voted on like the budget has been voted on. This is not something that we had complete agreement on. You did talk about that. There are lots of places for dialogue. Not everybody is going to agree about all of these things. Many of these suggestions came from the consultants, not from the board, but it should be there as part of our ongoing discussion. So this is a living document. And I think it's important, again, that our village boards know this. And this is it's still a starting point for strategizing around where we go in the future. And I mentioned that as far as the HOCO by Design pack, with the next meeting coming up next week, anyone who can't participate in that particular meeting, there are 4 alternative virtual meetings that you can sign up for. So if you have a conflict with that time, anyone can sign up for those. I think there are 4 presentations that are going to be done if you go to the HOCO by Design site on the Howard County website. So thank you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Ginny, and then Milton and Alan. Ginny?
Thank you, Andy. Kristen, you've done a fantastic job. I think some of us talked to you when this process was going on about the need for a 101 for this task force on what is the difference between a general plan and actually zoning, land use change. And you did that. I'm wondering if there's a way you can incorporate some of that into this presentation, because I don't think it's well understood what a general plan actually does, or a comprehensive plan does, in terms of it actually does not give the developer the right to develop that land, even if the county were to say, and I'm not pushing this, okay, I'm just trying to give you an example, that along Broken Land Parkway, there'll be all retail, commercial, bordering the road, along Snowden River, the same thing, and Gateway will be such and such. That is a comprehensive plan as to saying what they think is in the best interests of the county for that particular land use. You can call it a district plan, a sector plan at some point, if you do it in a comprehensive way. But it does not actually give the developer a right to actually build that on that land at that time. It sets the stage for the next step, which is actually the zoning map. And that can be done countywide or it can be done by districts. So you may want to, unless things have changed, that's the way it used to be. You may want to think about something in this document that kind of gives the 101 to the residents that are going to read this, because I agree with what Sherry said, and I think some other people have said, this has to go to the public. It has to go to the village boards. And I think they need that information. The other thing is, when we talk about new town zoning, we've got to be a little clearer, and not tonight, but what do we mean? Are we saying percentages are out? We don't think percentages make any sense anymore. Maybe there's a better way to do zoning in the Columbia area if we were to do that as a sector planning. I don't know, but I think that's important that we think a little bit more about really what we want to give the staff some direction and also have a lot of public input. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Milton?
I just want to very quickly, I think Kristen and Jessica, they did an excellent job working with our consultants. And in my mini conversation with Kristen, one of the things we want the board to look at the document is as a resource. Right now, the county is going through the updating the general plan. Following that will be a reassessment or looking at the zoning. We want to make sure that whether it's board members or community representatives from the Columbia, when you get to the table, you can say what some of our preferences are or what we would like to see. Because everything I've heard, we don't want Columbia to be blended into the rest of Howard County. You want it to remain unique, but a point that Alan and Dick were talking about, I don't think we should go to the table 55 years later and saying we still want Newtown zoning. I think we should go to the table with those land use features we want to make Columbia still distinct and different from the rest of the county. And you can put a title on it, a label on it later on, but it's not so much keeping Newtown zoning, it's just keeping those land uses that you will make Columbia different than the rest of Howard County and keep the uniqueness of Columbia.
Okay, Alan and then Dick.
Yeah, I guess, Milton, I think I see it a little differently than you do. For me, it's not about the land. I mean, I have no problem with what the label is. It's not about keeping the label. But for me, it's not just about the land uses. That's the end result. I'm more concerned about the process, and that the process for Columbia be different and be unique and be planned and representative of a planned community, not just that we have decided on specific uses, because then that just can fold into, okay, we'll have an R whatever district for Columbia, and that will be your uses. And that's not what I would want. The other thing that I'm realizing, that Sherry, you helped me realize, is that if we're going to use this, I really believe if we are going to use this as CA policy, that we're going to be talking from this document, our staff is going to be talking from this document as we go forward. I believe we can't do it tonight, it's a work session, but we need to formally adopt it. We may not all end up agreeing, but it can't be CA policy unless we adopt it. So I don't know if that's already in the works, but for me, this can't just be a briefing. We've got to adopt it.
Okay, let's do Dick, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up. Dick, gotta be quick.
I should just leave this thing on. I think Sherry raised a very good point. This has to be an official document. And at this point, we can consider it a draft. We can send it out to the villages, to the public for discussion, for review. This is our first shot at it, and get their input. But at some point, we have to have something that the board has put a stamp on and says, this is what Columbia Association is going to fight for. I mean, we can't be wishy-washy. We gotta take a stand. And as for Newtown zoning, I don't care what we call it. Newtown zoning served a purpose at one time for Rouse, And we probably need something a lot tighter now and a lot more descriptive about what can and cannot be and what's going to happen in our community. But we need a plan. I look at the downtown plan as kind of a model of where we want to go, where we get into a lot of detail about what you can do and what you can't do. And at some point, I think the board is going to have to say, okay, this is us. This is where we're standing, and this is what we want. And at some point, we're going to have to say there are 100,000 people who live here and take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
100,000 voters who live here. Okay.
Okay. We're going to move on now. Next topic is cybersecurity briefing and organizational impacts. Milton, anything you want to start us with?
Yes, once again, just give me a couple minutes. Because Chuck is going to lead us on the briefing, but I just want to make a couple comments and let the board know that we don't talk about cybersecurity much as a priority for the organization, but it is a priority. It's been a priority for us for a long time. You see the investments we're making in it, and what we're going to talk in general terms tonight because we are talking about our systems and our networks. But the point that I want to make for you is something that's very important to us. It was important to us before the pandemic, and since the pandemic, it's just ticked up more because there's more bad actors out there. We have more of our team members working from home, and it just makes us more exposed. And all the things that we're trying to do, as whether it's internally, our team, whatever, with our systems and our networks, that's good. And we're making those investments. But everything I read, and Chuck will tell you, the number one problem or the number one vulnerability any organization has, not just CA, are the users of it. And my point of it is that I consider the board members, team members of CA. And so we're going to be making an ask of the sitting board and boards going forward when it comes to using the network and the systems and having accessibility to CA's networks. So Chuck, I know you're out there.
Chuck, right before you start, let me just say that because the cybersecurity has been such a great topic of interest to our audit committee, we did invite our two resident members of the audit committee to attend. So both Jim and Tim are here tonight, and we want to thank them for attending. Chuck, turn it over to you.
Thanks, everybody. Milton, thank you for that great lead in. I really appreciate it. Let me bring my teleprompter up. A starting point for any discussion about cybersecurity is to remember bad actors do not play by the rules. A hacker's mindset is unique. They're adopting technology faster than we are. And most importantly, they usually attack the weakest link, not the lock. The threat landscape is constantly changing. Different attacks require different defenses. Security is complex. There are external threats. You heard about them in the news, malware and phishing and ransomware. These are just some of the methods that hackers use externally to attempt to gain access to our networks. There are internal threats. Data leaks by team members, for example. And while it can be hard to believe that team members would willingly sabotage their own organization, most of the time data leaks are purely accidental. Remember, the main objective for cyber criminals is to obtain the credentials of an employee or an administrator and then to move throughout the network with complete access to everything. This is why it's absolutely critical that everyone at CA, from the board to the senior leadership team to all team members without exception, are required to take and successfully complete the quarterly cybersecurity awareness training modules that are sent by IT using CA's training platform. These short exercises are designed to help everyone identify and react to the methods utilized by today's bad actors. Additionally, CAIT has developed a full spectrum of security policies to address subjects from acceptable usage for CA email accounts to the proper identification of sensitive data and its associated handling. CA's email policies clearly explain the need to utilize CA-provided email accounts when conducting business on behalf of the organization in order to maintain the integrity of corporate information exchange. Data classification in the context of information security is the categorization of information based on its level of sensitivity and the impact to CA should that data be disclosed, altered, or destroyed without authorization. CA's data handling policies were created to provide guidance for determining proper procedures for handling the organization's information through the use of CA-supplied encryption tools. As stated previously, it's vitally important that everyone at CA reviews all cybersecurity policies on an annual basis and to follow the acceptable usage policies for CA system access and email accounts, again, without exception. Remember, no organization is 100% secure. New attack scenarios are regularly discovered. Just this week, a Microsoft Exchange server attack and hack is threatening thousands of organizations and causing untold damage to the security of these organizations. ESET research has discovered that more than 10 different advanced persistent threat groups are exploiting these micro-exchange vulnerabilities today. CA has measures in place to react quickly to incidents and events. We use new knowledge of the threat landscape to move forward in a more secure and intelligent way. CAIT works with its partners and service providers to constantly review threats and vulnerabilities. As the business has become more distributed, security must be distributed as well. CAIT is regularly audited by internal and external review and responds accordingly to observations and recommendations. As such, new protections are identified, reviewed for inclusion in CA's cybersecurity ecosystem through new policies or guidelines, or through the introduction of new cybersecurity solutions. At this time, CAIT is in the process of implementing additional identification and authorization security, as well as new defensive hardware. As Milton said, I'll be happy to discuss the specifics in a closed meeting, but it's really not prudent to discuss our tactical solutions in this forum. Finally, is CA secure is not a yes or no question. The questions we really need to ask are, is CA secure enough to operate successfully? And again, most importantly, how much risk are we willing to accept? Many organizations have difficulty determining how secure they need to be, or how much risk they're willing to accept, or how much they're willing to spend to get risk to an acceptable level. For example, within CA, we say we have no risk appetite for unauthorized access to systems. So our controls have to be as tight as possible. We have a low risk appetite for business resiliency, meaning that if any of our systems go down, they need to come back up as soon as possible. Finally, we have a moderate risk appetite for using innovative technology solutions to meet new user demands. So it's okay to experiment within bounds. Risk appetite helps us to set boundaries. Understanding risk appetite puts stakes down, helps prioritize objectives and actions, and provides a basis for decisions. The process of developing and testing risk appetite is iterative. It's often centered on cost and driven by the realities of what it takes to meet security objectives. It's a matter of priorities. No organization has the money, the staff, and other resources to fix everything. And then there's the inevitable tension between defensive capabilities, cost, and business risk. Once again, we must understand the CA can never be 100% secure, but we can operate within a purposefully determined and acceptable risk appetite. When our security capabilities and risk appetite are both clear, cybersecurity programs and processes help CA set boundaries for action. Security should not just be thou shalt not, but also here's your freedom of motion to operate and innovate. Cybersecurity must be involved early in the conception and development of new business initiatives. Cybersecurity should enable the progress of CA while preventing the progress of the bad guys. The most important point to remember is that cybersecurity is not simply an IT problem, nor a management problem or a personnel problem. Rather, every individual at CA plays a supporting role, and a communal effort is required to ensure that CA's information is safe from threats. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. I think Renee has. Let's see. Oh,
That was from before.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
That's okay. It's no problem.
All right. Questions for Chuck? Any questions?
No, can I comment though? Since
Sure.
I
Yeah.
just want to say I'm a member of the Audit Committee also, and I just want to say that we have spent a lot of time. We can't get into specifics. We spent a lot of time and energy working with Susan and the rest of the staff and our external IT auditors, and they've done a fabulous job of keeping us informed of what's going on. And I feel very confident that we're on a path to mitigate risk as best we can.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that.
Any other comments from board members? No? Oh, Milton.
Well, I want to wait and make sure all the board members had their questions asked, because I just wanted to give an example of how vigilant I would like for everyone to be, whether it's team members or board members. And I'll use myself as an example. This week, I received an email twice about a CA-related matter, and I didn't recognize the name of the person. I even went to Janet and I said, Janet, do you know the name of the person? So this person. So the first time, to me, it was a phishing, and I hooked them. And the second time it came back to me again, and I was ready about to put the hook on him again. I think Chuck told me, no, Milton, that's someone that you need to acknowledge. But it's just the fact that I read something where it said over 90% of breaches are done by human error. And once you get in, you can just work your way in throughout the organization. And that's what scares me. Someone can be multitasking and just look up and see something, and all he has to say, Andy, and it doesn't say Stack, it just says Andy. And there it is. And so I'm not trying to scare you, but I just need your help. So just be attentive to it.
Thanks, Milton. That was a great example.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. And, kind of the message is everybody's involved from the board on down. So we all have to do our role and do the best we can.
May I ask one question?
Sure.
Is there a way, and I don't know, maybe this may already be going on, where we can involve the village boards more in this endeavor? Because there's so much traveling back and forth between the villages and CA staff and the board members. I don't know if we provide them like the quarterly training, but I don't know what it would cost to do that, but I think at least the village managers and maybe, the village chairs or other staff at the village level, it couldn't hurt us to have that extra layer of protection.
I'll take that away and look into it, Renee.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. We'll move on to our next topic, which is 2021 budget update. Milton, anything you want to?
Now, I know that Susan and Lynn are out there.
Okay, Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So we're not, I knew that we wouldn't, but I think I let you know last week that we would not have financial results for February in time for this meeting, but that the thorough, the robust quarterly report with the updated estimate for FY21 for the full year will be out next week in time for the audit committee, and discussed and presented at the audit committee meeting on March 22nd. And then again for the board members who might not attend the audit committee meeting on March 25th. So that's in the works. But I did want to give you an update on, I know people have been concerned about the abatements and what's happening in that realm. So so that process begins in earnest with the January release of, the assessed valuations. So we've had updated conversations with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation team, and I sent out a memo this morning about 10 o'clock that just to let you know that while we are experiencing a greater volume of abatements as compared to the previous years, it's not as significant as we budgeted. So we will be updating or revising the estimate for FY21 annual charge revenue upwards. So the SDOT team said that what they have in their pipeline right now, they would describe as heavy. It's a lot of abatement requests, but those will impact the July 2021 billing. So their goal, as stated, is to get those processed and, if approved, factored into the file for the July 2021 billing, the upcoming billing. So, and then I also just wanted to also clarify, I think we reported this earlier in the year, but the abatements would not be applied retroactively unless it's determined that the assessor made an error. So it's, and I don't know how often that occurs at this point. So let's see. So we will in the quarterly report that we issue next week, we're going to increase the estimate for 21 annual charge revenue by about $3.4 million. So that will be closer to what we had in 2020 and the original budget. That impacts this current fiscal year. It does not provide any additional cash because that cash has already been collected and reported on the financial statements. You can see that in the second quarter statements. And then what would have happened, or what does happen with abatements, is it reduces the annual charge income and the cash. So it gets paid, they get paid out to customers, to property owners as refunds. So person has to pay and then they get a refund if the abatements, and that's how the property tax system works. And then I'm sure, because there's such uncertainty and the volume is high for FY22, we would not change the forecast for FY22 at this point. And so that, we believe, is still a valid projection based on our communication with the SDAT team and what we're seeing from Howard County. So any questions on that? And then again, there's a memo. If you haven't seen it, I sent it about 10 this morning.
Okay, let's see. We have, let's see, Dick, Alan, Renee, and I just see Shari raises her hand. Okay, Dick.
Yeah, just one question. This looks like we got a bit of additional income than we expected. Is this going to have any effect on the allocations to the villages?
So it's that you could need to give me that direction. So it certainly could, but I don't feel like that's my decision to make. But if as the board would give me that direction, then yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Alan?
Well,
then Renee, and then Shari.
I'll second the emotion. My understanding is that we had agreed that as we take a hit in our assessment dollars, the villages would take a hit. And as that hit changes, the hit to the villages changes.
Right. Okay.
So I think, to my mind, we've already made that decision.
Okay.
And anything to be recalculated.
Renee, and then Shari.
I agree. So I have a question. So I know when we got the assessment in, we credited revenue, debited cash. So we had an extra $3 million of cash. So where is it? I mean, where is it in the bank?
Yeah.
We're sitting on an extra $3 million of cash right now.
I wouldn't. So
I mean,
what does extra mean? So it was.
Well, we had budgeted $3 million less in revenue.
Right.
Okay, so
Yes.
and we project that most of that revenue is net, right? Net of bad debts or whatever you want to call it.
Net of abatements, yes.
Abatements or, okay. So I guess my question is, we should be sitting on a little bit of a pile of cash.
Yes.
Okay, so how much is that pile of cash?
I don't have the January balance sheet. You'll get it next week and see it. I don't know exactly
Okay.
what that is. Yeah.
All right. So all right, yes. Then, so the board needs to decide what to do with that money.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I would think it would be part of it would keep us from borrowing going forward, but you can decide what else you want to do with it.
Well, if we have an extra $3 million, I mean, if we have that type of profit, we have some options in front of us.
For
Potential.
FY21, yeah, I mean, that will help to offset the Haven write-off as well.
Well, that could be the option, that we substantially pay down the Haven, or something else. I mean, that's what I'm saying, that we need to pretty quickly decide what we want to do, if anything. I mean, maybe we put it into the rainy day fund this year, or pay into the insurance trust what we took out.
Yep.
Okay, Shari, Ginny, and Milton.
Yeah, Susan, I just wanted to ask, just to make sure I'm understanding that, if the abatement goes through, or whether it's commercial or residential, but let's say commercial, it goes through and it's approved by the state, county, whatever, and they get a refund, because I'm gathering from what you said, they've already paid in, but they would get a refund. Would they get a refund from CA at the same time? In other words, are we required to do that refund at the same time? Do we have the same, are we operating off of the same time period as whatever governs the abatement?
Well, so what an abatement means is that the property value is reduced. So when that property value is reduced, the person deserves the refund. You know, the owner deserves the acknowledgement of that. So CA would really be would have to honor that in the time, you know, at the time that it was the value was adjusted. So.
All right, so that would be, for example, for a year. That would be for. Isn't this usually done yearly?
No, this is once the value is reduced, it's reduced until the next time it's reassessed.
Okay, so that could be longer than a year.
Correct.
Could be 3.
Okay, so in terms of our thinking going forward, we need to know that it is not following our budget years, but it's going forward to the next time there's an evaluation of that property.
Correct.
Okay, and the other question that I had is, as far as a refund is concerned, is that dependent, is that a cash flow situation for CA? In other words, do we have to use cash to return that to the property owner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ginny and Milton.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to understand that too, in terms of, is it a 3-year assessment that the state does every 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, on property. Okay, so that could last 3 years.
Right.
So I guess what I would love to see from you is, and I don't know when you can get this information, is really considering you probably are going to have to pay some people a refund. And that would come from the quote, we could use the term 3 million right now. We don't really know for sure what it'll be, cash. And then after that, you'll have X amount available. And then I think we get into the issue the other board members are raising is what are the options? Because I think we also have a lot of demand for opening some more outdoor pools, pending lifeguards and everything else on the table. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, Milton. Oh, no. Nancy.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear. Could you, first of all, let me ask the question. Susan, what is the cost of closing Haven?
So I don't know what it will cost to drain the pool and things like that. But the expense that has to be recognized when it's closed is the write-off, is the the expense of the remaining undepreciated assets need to be expensed upon closing. And that's about $2.7 million. That's all the leasehold, all the improvements that haven't been depreciated yet is approximately 2.7 million.
Okay, because I had asked that before and I couldn't get a number from
Yeah, I sent it to you multiple times, Nancy, sorry.
you. Okay, well, it's dead. I promise everybody I will not cry about it anymore. But
Nancy,
I am, yeah.
one point that we need to make sure that you're clear on, expensing closing Haven is different than the amount that we still owe on the lease.
Right.
I know that, and you're still
Okay.
paying the lease,
Right.
even though nobody's using it. So that's
Yes.
a whole other story.
Right.
Yeah. About the abatements, I don't understand how they can get a reduction in abatements if actually property values have been increasing.
Well, so that's true for residential,
Right.
but the commercial market's in chaos, frankly.
Right,
I mean,
that's crashing.
Yeah,
So these are all commercial abatements.
that's where the risk is and the exposure to CA far and above anything else. I mean, well, I won't say, but you see what's happening with office space and retail space and
the empty building, where the empty basement of Whole Foods. Yeah.
mhm.
If I may quickly inject, please notice that our commercial annual charge is the greatest percentage of our total annual charge in FY22 than it has been since I've been here.
Mhm.
Could you say that again?
Yeah.
The percentage of our, if you look at the total amount of our annual charge,
Right.
22, what we're showing is the commercial part of it and our initial projections being greater than it has been in previous years.
And that's even with the abatements. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying when we.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is because of
Yeah.
Meriwether district and so on.
Yes.
I think, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dick?
Well, Susan has told us that she needs direction from the board as to what we do with this sum of money, whatever it may turn out to be. So I want to just make sure this doesn't get lost in the shuffle. We should probably put something on next week's the next meeting's agenda, because I don't want this just to disappear.
Okay, Lynn, you want to respond? So Lynn, I'll let you jump in.
Yes, I wanted to just clarify the point about the abatement processing. The abatement processing began, the deadline for abatement requests, commercial abatement requests, was in January. And the goal of the State Department is to incorporate any abatements that are approved into the billing cycle in July. I think Susan had said that earlier. That would eliminate the need for refunds per se. So I don't want anyone to think that there's going to be a huge influx of refund activity after the fact. If they are in fact successful in getting the abatements that are approved into the file, we had anticipated that there might be an actual or potential change in the abatement process in FY21 because of the pandemic. That didn't come to fruition. As it was, we still saw a high level of tax credit activity in FY21, and tax credit activity will continue as well. The credits tend to be what generates an actual cash refund, more so than an abatement. So I just wanted to clarify that while that could happen as a result of the unusual circumstances that we're facing and have been facing, they are trying to get those reduced valuations incorporated into the billing cycle.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Again, Andy, could we make sure that this comes up at the next meeting?
Well, yeah, and you can also discuss it at the Audit Committee meeting, which is on Monday.
Well, we can, but I just don't want to get swept under the rug.
And if we're going to change something, the budget has to be done at a meeting. We have to vote
Oh,
on.
yeah.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
That'd be done at a
and
meeting.
it should go before the entire board.
Right. But you can talk about it at the Audit Committee meeting, because the Audit Committee meeting is where we do the financial reports.
Okay.
Right, but it's not the finance committee.
No, it's not the Finance, it's the Audit Committee.
I'm sorry, Andy. I just want to emphasize that this is FY21 income. It's not FY22 income. And so it's for, it's between now and the end of April, right?
Right.
Right.
So Renee, you have your hand up. You want to say something?
Well,
Or
I mean, I agree that it's this year's income, but we have villages, some of them, not all, but some are struggling, and maybe not, for the reasons that other people on the board or on senior staff think. And if we can give them some relief, I think that we have an obligation to do that.
I agree.
okay. I had my name in the queue, and whatever I want to say is, I think we are really going to see the hit next year. I mean, from reading Susan's, memo, because of what the state is trying to do, they're trying to basically do any reduction in the property assessment for the July 2021, which for us means where that hit is going to show up is in fiscal year 2022, and given the reassessment, maybe 23 and 24. So I think I'd just say we kind of got lucky that we didn't get hit this year. Just the way the state decided to kind of handle these changes. But I think we just need, as a board, to think about, the impact on 2022, 23, and 24 as what might happen.
So,
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. So one thing that I had asked for, and I know everybody, whatever. I think there are about 10 to 20 big property, commercial / apartment owners in Columbia. And we need to find out if they've applied for abatements. And that is public information. I have applied already to find out, according to the tax records, who pays the most taxes in the zip codes. But I think who they are. I mean, who's paying the biggest the biggest assessment bills. And we need to just figure out if those businesses have applied for abatements, like the mall, or one or two of Howard Hughes's properties. And that will give us a good indication of what we're up against, I think.
Okay, Shari and then Ginny.
Thinking along those very same lines, I think it's important to know about the biggest property owners and what the effect, because that has a cumulative effect throughout Columbia. And we're going to be observing this certainly in terms of the economics of Columbia within the county. So it's important for us to know. And also, we can probably get some information about the possible effect on the CA business parks. So certainly if folks there are hurting, I think we need to know something about that. We see what's going on in some of the more obvious places, like over at the mall, but we don't see what's going on in the business parks. So that would be good information for us to have as well. Thank you.
Ginny.
Yeah. Susan or Lynn, but both of you, help me with this. If you're a business person, or just say the mall, and you got a tax bill from the state for, I'll make it up, $100,000, all right? Now, what you're saying is you will pay that $100,000 while you're appealing it, correct?
That was my understanding, but what you would do first is you would appeal the value that you got before the bill was generated.
Okay,
You
all
know,
right.
so you're going to get your notice in January of what your value is,
Right.
that you appeal
Okay.
that.
And you appeal it. But what I understand you're saying, which I'm surprised the business community is going along with this. Yeah, okay, I may win that appeal, but they're not going to give me a break until the second year of my 3-year cycle next year. So I am still going to have to pay that 100,000. Next year, maybe I'll only pay 50,000. I would think the business community would be up in arms about that. If I won my appeal and I really should be only assessed at a payment of 50,000, it seems like I should be getting the 50,000.
Right. If you win your appeal, that's correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right.
Okay. So therefore, if I'm only paying 50,000 based on my reduced assessment, CA is also then going to have a reduced amount that they'll get.
Correct.
And that will be, you're saying, only effective for the next budget.
Unless it's contested.
Right.
It's possible that it could be contested in court.
Contested by whom? The owner of the property or the state?
The property owner.
But they won the appeal. They won the appeal. Everybody agrees that their property is not the value that the state assessed it for. It's a lower value. Therefore, they are not going to pay, we'll just make up these figures, 100,000. They're only going to pay 50,000. Therefore, CA will not get the percentage, 68 cents per $100 on 100,000. You will get, or whatever it is, the assessment, you'll get a lot less.
Right.
So you're saying that it certainly isn't going to impact the current budget that we're living under now, but the next one, it will not impact that?
No,
The
we're
one
saying
May
that
1st, 2021 budget.
it would, because
Okay,
that's what's in the pipeline now, right?
That's what I thought. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I thought it would impact immediately. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Because the business is not going to put up with not getting that reduction after they fought for it. Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions? If not, I want to thank Susan and Lynn, and we'll move on to the next topic, which is applicable state legislation. Are there any questions for Sherry? She sent us a memo. Shari, I see your hand up there.
Okay, thank you. In looking over the list about state bills, SB 144 and HB 110, the co-bill, is about electric vehicle recharging equipment for multifamily dwellings. I'm assuming that has an effect on the HOAs in our community. And what will be the impact on the villages of that legislation?
As you just said, the legislation would impact possibly individual townhouse associations or apartment complexes, but it would not directly impact the villages. And the villages are not the ones with the authority to enforce the individual associations' covenants. That's up to the individual associations. So,
what about its effect on our covenants as an HOA?
Well, among other things, it doesn't. The bill does not affect reasonable restrictions on the recharging stations, so I don't think it's really going to be an issue for the villages.
Okay, I'm not sure. Sherry, did you send us the wording for this piece of legislation? I did not see it, but you know,
The
I may have missed it.
all of the memos that are in the Google Drive on legislation, have attached to them every bill that's described in the memo. So if you go back into that file, you will be able to find the actual language of each bill.
Okay, so if it doesn't have a negative effect on Columbia Association covenants, and you don't think it will have a negative effect on the villages, is that something that we can get behind supporting as far as lowering the carbon footprint of our communities? In other words, should we be saying something positive about it?
Again, it's a judgment call for the board as to whether to spend funds on issues that do not directly negatively impact CA or the villages. Lobbying is costly. And so we try to address our efforts to legislation that we think could create an issue for us or the villages.
All right, but it's possible for the board to simply send a letter and submit that as testimony.
It is.
Okay. And I also had a question about two other bills. HB 352 and HB 361, governing bodies and annual meetings and member training. Are these the same pieces of legislation, Sherry, that have been introduced before that would require fees for certification by our village managers and village board members and potentially CA board members to come up for certification? There was a very similar type of thing that came up a couple of years ago.
This is actually something different. This bill was introduced for the first time last year. It was reintroduced this year. It doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere this year, but in the way of HOA bills, it will probably come back again and again until it finally gets passed. But the bill relates to actual training. Excuse me, I just lost my... Somehow I just lost my camera. But in any event, what it would require is that boards of directors actually go through a training process in order to understand what it means to be a director and how they are supposed to act as a director. And essentially, there would be an actual curriculum which would have to be studied by each member of the board, and the board would have to pass a test in order to continue to serve on the board. So it's different than the bill you're talking about. That bill, by the way, also keeps coming back, but it's a separate bill.
Okay, and who put this forward? Who is putting forward this certification training? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't recall specifically who the sponsor is. These are the kind of bills that typically are filed because there's been some problem or issue with a small HOA where you have a board that really doesn't understand what their job is, and they are really not doing their job. And so there'll be complaints made to a particular representative or senator, and they'll file a bill.
Okay, this represents a lot of money that could be very, very costly to a lot of people, both as individuals and for small HOAs. And I think it's something we should keep our eye on. So if I can just ask you if you can maybe report back to us on this. Thank you.
Right now, it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere this year. So.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn and then Alan. Lynn had her hand up.
That's okay.
Oh, you're okay. All right. Okay, Alan.
I just want to say I support Shari in the first thing you talked about. And I know that, yes, we can write a letter, but if we simply say right now, yeah, we can write a letter, but we don't do anything, then no letter gets written. So I would like that to be put on the agenda for in a timely fashion. So Sherry Fanaroff, if you could tell us what kind of timing we would have if we wanted to send a letter to be influential, When would that letter have to be in?
Sooner rather than later, because the deadlines for filing bills have now already passed. Bills will be crossing over from one house to the other, from the House to the Senate and vice versa, in another week or two. So if we're going to put in a letter, it would be a good idea to put the letter in next week. So basically, I would need guidance from the board as to whether it wants that done pretty soon.
Well, that sounds like before our next, this goes back, and we've talked about this before, and I know, Sherry, you're not always in control of the timing, not ever in control of the timing, but we often find out things that we want to weigh in on, but then find out we don't have time. Our next meeting's not for 2 more weeks. So for the future, there's something we need to do about that. But for this, I guess I'll put it in your lap, Andy. I'd like to see a process by which we can agree to give staff some guidance on on a letter that would support, for the reasons that Sherry Zarrett pointed out, to support the
Sherry,
first group they talked
could
about.
you read?
Just a point of clarification, Andy, can't we suspend the rules tonight
Yes, we can.
and just move for a letter of support to be sent?
Takes a 2/3 vote to suspend the rules, I believe, yeah.
Okay, what's the bill again?
Can I suggest something here?
Wait a minute. Wait, Sherry, can you give me the bill number again?
Yeah, it's SB 144 and HB 110. So Sherry's point about crossover is important here.
Andy?
Yes,
And
Jenny?
one of the things we might want to consider doing is looking at the bill and finding out who the sponsors are in both the House and the Senate. And if they're Howard County delegates or senators, I would direct our mail to them. And especially if they're on the committee that's dealing with the legislation, that will even be more of an impact. And they'll get the message because they're going to be the ones actually voting on it to see if it gets out of committee. And you can, that's the best way really to handle it. And you don't need to pay a lobbyist to do that.
All right, so you want us to go find out who sponsored the bills?
Well, I mean, it's sponsored and co-sponsored. You have to just look at the bill. It's all there.
I can say that all of the HOA bills end up in front of the Environmental Matters Committee, subcommittee in the House. And so that's Jen Terrasa. And so she would be probably the most direct contact for us to send support.
And if you'd have to look it up real quick, if you could, is she one of the sponsors? That will tell you whether she's supporting it or not. But we don't have time maybe tonight to do that, but that would be the next step.
I don't believe she's one of the sponsors. These HOA bills don't tend to come from the Howard County delegation, but we can double check it.
Okay,
and the Senate bill, the same thing would be looked at.
Okay.
Lynn?
Yeah, I haven't read the bill, so I don't know what the effect would be on, as I think was mentioned earlier, a lot of the smaller HOAs throughout the state. What are the requirements, that kind of thing. And unless we know that, I think we need to look at that kind of thing. It could be prohibitively expensive for small associations.
Lynn, are you talking about the second bill, or the first bill that Sherry Zarrett was talking about?
The first bill.
The recharging.
Right.
The charging stations.
Mm-hmm.
All right, can I ask then, in order to give our board members time to read that bill and to find out more information, and I think checking with Jen Terrasa would be a good idea, just to find out more information. But can we get this on our next agenda? No, that's not until...
we can certainly
not until the 25th.
Right, we can certainly put it on, and we can still send the letters out, because if they cross over, you know, those committees will still review them.
The committee still have to look
Ginny,
at the,
Ginny, is there still time after the 25th?
You'd have to check the dates with Sherry, see what the crossover date is, and see if they're going to both survive the committee and see who the sponsors are, whether they're powerful people or not. I mean, there's a game this time of year that's being played. So I could look at it, but I think to be fair to the board, we can also write our own individual letters right now or call Jen's office and just leave a message today, tomorrow, right away, just to get something going for board members that feel strongly one way or the other. They can do that right tomorrow while we're waiting for the whole board to do something. But I think we need to read the bill.
Yeah.
All right.
And I really want to find out
information.
if there's an influential legislator here, it's a good bill, then we want to talk to that person and ask, what's the testimony? Is it for, against, what's the story, you know? But I don't know who's going to do that is the problem. Hello, anybody there?
All right. Well, we'll definitely put this on for the March meeting, okay? And hopefully, please, everyone, read the bill. Yeah, I know. Please read the bill and come prepared to discuss. And meanwhile, if folks can find out who the sponsors are, or you know, you contact Jen, things like that.
Andy, Sherry, not only reading the bill, could you give us a fiscal note, please? That will explain the bill and explain the position of the legislative staff that analyzed the bill. Could you get that?
I can find out who the sponsors are and just send you all an email that tells you who the sponsors are.
No, and the fiscal note.
And the fiscal note.
Fiscal note is crucial for this board to understand the position of the staff on it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I just have a question of clarification for Sherry Fanaroff. Often you'll send us memos about legislation and you send them to us in a privileged manner. This one you have in the open board meeting. Is it that the difference is in this memo, you're not giving any opinions about any of the bills?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought.
All right. Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Move on. The next discussion on the most recent development tracker. Milton, anything you want to say? Milton, you're
I'm muted, yes. Jessica and Kristen are out there, so please, Jessica.
okay. Jessica, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you've all had time to read through the March Development Tracker installment. I think I'll just briefly go over a few highlights. One is to let you know that the Hickory Ridge Village Center zoning board case is moving into closing arguments on the next meeting. So we should be looking forward to a decision on that sometime in late spring, maybe summer, depending on how many meetings the zoning board wants to discuss it in work session. I do, however, anticipate that will go to appeal regardless of what the decision is. So I'll probably have some lengthy time in the appeal status as well. But I wanted to let you know that that's happening. Erickson continues its arguments, so we're not sure on the timeline on that one. And then we have just continued to monitor the various projects that are going through their development review processes throughout the county. Did any of you have any questions on any of the projects that were in the March development tracker?
No, I don't see anybody in the chat room, so I guess there are no questions. So thank you, Jessica. Appreciate the, sorry. Alan jumped in. Alan.
Well, just because her specific thing was about the development tracker, and my question is not about the development tracker. I'm trying to think if I'm going to be able to frame this question well. The planning board, I assume you get the same memos that I get from Chris Olive, for example, around his opinion about what's happening at the planning board about relooking at sort of changing their mind about a development and his belief that that's contrary to their not just practice, but policies. And I wonder if you all have any thoughts, opinions about that.
So this is regarding the planning board's discussion of reviewing their decision and order on the Lakeview retail case, correct? Yeah. So essentially what's happened so far is that we try to strictly follow what is occurring in the public sphere. And that is that the planning board received a request from the Lakeview retail applicant to review their decision and order. The planning board has held closed meetings asking for legal advice on that and has not made any formal decisions related to it. We anticipate that on the 18th, they will decide if they want to take any action. They may choose to take no action, but at this time, there's no real response for us to take because we're not clear on what action they will or will not take. Because it could be that they simply clarify their decision and order. Right now, the decision and order reads that basically, based on the testimony of that night, we deny this. So they might choose to detail how they deny it, or they might decide to leave it as is, and so there's not really an action to be taken or any process for us to comment on at this time. So we'll continue to monitor the situation, and we will be participating at the meetings that the planning board schedules where they are taking testimony.
Okay, thank you. And my understanding of Chris's objection is that it is not allowable for the planning board simply to say, oops, we've changed our mind just because we have a different decision now. Is that an accurate reading from your point of view of planning board policies?
Well, you'd have to, so first I will say that this is going outside of the planning realm where I have the expertise area where I can interpret the regulations, because you would have to review all of the regulations for Howard County related to their public meeting provisions, to their zoning regulations, how they enforce that, for how they do their procedures, because those aren't necessarily always codified. I don't think at this time there's anything that we are alarmed about or need to participate in, but whether or not the planning board's procedures allow them to review a decision in order that they made once they've received a complaint or a request for clarification about that decision is really a legal question that the county would have to answer,
right?
And their legal staff. But it's not something that we need as in our department or as CA to get involved in at this time.
Okay, I hear you. Last thing I just want to say about it is, for me, this fits with, and I appreciate you continuing to look at it. And I guess what I would, this is Alan speaking personally, I'd want us to lean on the side of being skeptical about, just to ensure, or at least critical, to ensure that the planning board, among others, follow procedures that they're supposed to follow, because not following procedure is a way to get an outcome is, even if we might like the outcome, is not great, not a way to run an airline. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Andy, a quick question. Yeah, I recycled your report. I apologize, but now that I remember, you had something in there on there was a case with the planning board, hearing officer, I mean, that they had heard with DPZ and the Symphony Woods and that issue, Symphony of Lights, and whether DPZ could grant a permit or not, or didn't, or whether a permit was required or not for the Symphony of Lights, I believe. It was heard by the hearing officer, but that was like months ago. What's going on with that?
So you're talking about the administrative appeal of DPC's decision regarding the determination of Symphony of Lights. Yeah. So
correct.
All that's happened on that is that there was a motion to dismiss, and that motion to dismiss was denied. So it is currently being scheduled over the next several months. CA is the appellant in that case. So,
Right, but it's the hearing officer that'll be hearing it
yes, the hearing examiner,
and making a decision.
yes, related to the DPZ director's decision, yes.
Yeah, as to whether or not they can, whether they have to give a permit or not, or make a decision on a permit or not.
It's related to her determination of the temporary use permit for the festival lights that occurred at the Symphony of Wood.
Yeah. So why is it, taking so long? The hearing office has a lot of cases, or what?
Yeah, no, the hearing examiner, typically.
The hearing examiner.
Yeah, their cases, there used to only be one, there's now 2 that operate in the county, and it takes almost a year to get scheduled before them because there's such a high influx of cases that they have to go through, and they do a lot of review prior to making their decision in order. So it's not atypical for it to take months to schedule cases.
Wow. Talk about justice denied. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Nope. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Kristen.
Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Good night. Okay, next, capital project and open space updates. Milton, anything you want to say?
Now, Dennis, you're up.
Okay.
Dennis?
Okay, first of all, I love this picture, especially in the context of the 20 to 30 inches of snow that is supposed to happen in Denver over this weekend. And I'm hoping that we're done with this. It's a great picture. This was actually from this year. And what you can see in this picture.
We're not seeing any picture, Dennis.
You didn't share, Dennis, you didn't share your screen.
I did, but it didn't share for some reason. Let me go back and share it again.
No, it hasn't been shared.
It was terrific. You missed it.
You had to have been there.
Yes. Can you see it now?
It's coming up. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so what's interesting about this picture is that is one of our Toolcat UTVs, and on the front of that, so that's pervious paving on the multi-use pathway, and you can't plow that. So what we do is we use a brush that spins and blow the snow off of the multi-use pathway. And we do that for the entire length. Anywhere there's pervious paving, or there are pavers, there's some at Town Center at Oakland Manor, we use this machine. We did some work at Claret Hall in the restrooms, some upgrades there, and in the restrooms in the kitchen. So there were some live stakes. We're just getting ready, or just getting into the landscaping for the SHA project. And I was out yesterday, and what was remarkable, so Wednesday was the first really nice day yesterday, and there were probably 10 to 12 kids that were in or around the stream. They had their boots on, the parents were there. It was a great picture of what works in Columbia. There were probably 4 or 5 parents at the tot lot. I was at the Faulkner Ridge Circle. That is not the one that's by the Starbucks. It's the next one, just down the hill at the start of the SHA project. First of all, it's remarkable. And I asked John McCoy to set something up in 3 or 4 weeks for the villages and CA board if they're interested to walk it. You have to see it in person. I know there's a lot of discomfort about some of the other work, but it's truly remarkable. They're almost done in that area, and in a couple of weeks it'll start to green up. So we'll set something up. I want to invite Long Reach Village Board specifically because they got some work that's scheduled to take place there, as well as Wild Lake, Harper's Choice, and any CA board members who might be interested. But the number of kids, and they wouldn't have been able to do what they were doing prior to the work because it was all overgrown and brush. And so it was remarkable. Talbot Springs, we installed a couple of new Energy Star HVAC units. So the CA drone policy, the FAA has changed the rules and regulations. In the past, you could control your property, the airspace above the property. You can no longer control the airspace above the property.
Wow.
It's remarkable. It's incredibly liberal, or it's open-ended. but you can, so if somebody walks, let's say you live adjacent to Lake Elkhorn, and you launch your drone from your property, you can walk down to the lake and fly your drone over CA property unfettered, as long as you don't harass wildlife or people. And so we are adjusting our policy to be consistent with the county and also to be consistent with FAA regulations. But now you have to have, it's for recreational casual use, and there are some licensing requirements, but and you have to have your registration number written in ink on your drone, and you have to have a copy of your license with you. But who is going to? We don't have park rangers, and the county has just not. The county has said you can you can launch your drone off of their property. So it's a complete change in drone policy. So behind us, Jeremy has got a lot of airtime, and rightfully so. And I asked him last month if he could do something on CA's energy program, which is truly remarkable. So this was not in anticipation of all the other airtime he's gotten recently, but I'm gonna let this run.
I'm Jeremy Schwarzenberg, CA's Energy Manager, and I work in the Open Space and Facility Services Division, specifically within Construction and Facilities Management. CA's Energy Management Program has been operating since 2012, and we've made some significant accomplishments in that time. We've reduced our energy use by more than 20% and our greenhouse gas emissions by more than half. And the solar panels you see behind me are part of that critical accomplishment.
Our latest energy project is a dual-axis solar tracking system at the Long Reach Tennis Club. This solar system actively tracks the sun throughout the day, maximizing its output and generating 40% more energy than the fixed mount system you see sitting next to it. Now we'll go see some of the mechanical systems inside the tennis club itself.
Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the more behind-the-scenes work that goes on every day to make our facilities a success and to meet the needs of our customers. Let's talk about some of the fundamental building systems that we own and operate here at CA. Our HVAC systems, or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, are what keep our buildings cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. And they also filter the air in our buildings about 10 times every hour. These pieces of equipment require constant maintenance and upkeep. In fact, they undergo quarterly preventative maintenance sessions by our on-call contractors to make sure they're operating at optimum conditions and that any potential problems are identified and fixed before they become real problems to our members. This particular system is a dedicated outdoor air system, and this provides fresh air constantly to the Long Reach Tennis Club, while these other units behind me are what cool and heat the space. Next, we'll move on to what provides some of the hot water for this building. Another key part of managing our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems is making hot water. We have boilers and water heaters throughout our building portfolio that keep our pools warm and our showers hot. Behind me, you see a pair of domestic on-demand water heaters. Rather than having a tank that holds hot water for hours and hours all day long for no purpose, these heaters only operate when someone is actually using the water, resulting in tremendous energy savings. Now, I've talked a little bit about some of the mechanical systems here at the Long Reach Tennis Club, and we're going to step it up a notch and move over to the ice rink and show you some of our real equipment. So now we're over at the Columbia Ice Rink in the main electrical distribution room. So we have a panel on my left that provides electrical power for the building. This is a major water heater that provides domestic hot water for showers, which of course there's a lot of because hockey kids take a lot of showers. And then next to this is a large commercial boiler that serves to provide hot water for our dehumidification system.
Our most complex mechanical system is at the Columbia Ice Rink. I'm in the compressor room for the large industrial refrigeration system that keeps the ice at chilly 20 degrees Fahrenheit. This system has a cooling capacity of 120 tons, or about 30 times the capacity of the average air conditioning system in a typical home. Can you imagine that? It's 30 times as powerful from a cooling perspective. Our team, as well as specialized contractors, are regularly monitoring and maintaining this critical equipment. In fact, these systems are monitored remotely multiple times a day to ensure things are operating smoothly. In closing, CA's construction facilities management team works 24/7 to keep our buildings operating and providing services to our community. What you have just seen is only a sample of the more than 300 pieces of equipment that are operating right now to keep the showers hot at the swim center or the nursery school warm at the Running Brook Neighborhood Center.
Any questions for Dennis? Well, Dennis, the one thing I would say for Jeremy is it's an incredibly clean environment. For I mean, I've dealt in my previous job. I've dealt with mechanical systems and rooms and that, and it's like, wow, this is like really clean. Good job.
I like the labeling, the way he's got all the signs on everything. I mean, I feel like I could go in there and operate that with all the.
It's incredibly complex.
Well, I'm not volunteering to go over and mess with it, but no, it really looks nice.
Let's know, Dick, if you're going over there so we can clear out the building.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I'll just say it was fascinating to all of a sudden see Jeremy show up on whatever streaming service I was using on my TV. That was quite cool.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. All right, we added the item Inner Arbor County grant request. I mean, Ginny read it. She'd like us to put this on our meeting agenda for a vote. I would just say that I think it would be very good if Inner Arbor sent us an official request to support the project, and also make sure that we get a copy of exactly what the grant request is, and we can then post all that information for our next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Jenny, you want to say?
No, I'm sure Lynn, Janet could talk to Nina and make sure we get that, or.
I thought Nina already sent that to Milton.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not clear why we support other things. Nobody's asked whoever the legislator is who put in the bill that we're thinking of supporting. We're not asking them to ask us for their support. Why would we? It's not like they're asking us for money.
Well, the
landowner.
The reason I raised this is we had an excellent presentation at the Oakland Mills Village Board, and then the board is going to consider writing a letter of support. And I understood King's Contrivance did the same thing, and then I'm hearing other boards did. So I'm thinking CA board, it might be good if we told the county. And the whole idea of the Inner Arbor Trust is a 501(c) so that they could get money. And one of the things we've been complaining about, boy, if there was just a way to get more money in to do things that are needed on CA property. And this just seems like a win-win for both, not just the Inner Arbor Trust, but also CA and our residents. And to lose any chance of getting money these days, I don't think we want to do that. So that's the background for me anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Dick, and then Shari, and then Lynn.
I think this is a good idea. The thing is that this is our park and our land, and if Lynn and Janet can get some money to improve it according to the plan that we've already approved, that's good. And so I'm all in favor of sending a letter, any kind of letters that we can to get that money.
Shari, and then Lynn.
Yeah, I'm also in support of this because we're hearing from our residents via the village boards that there is tremendous support for doing this. So I think it's important that we recognize that we work with the villages. The villages appear to be behind it. I have not heard anything negative about it, and so I think it's a very good idea to show some solidarity about this.
Lynn?
Yeah, the town center supported it very strongly and testified for it. I believe, Dick, did Dorsey Hall support that yet?
It's on the agenda. I think well, Nina presented last night.
Right.
And we got a request, I think, from Nina for a letter. Our next meeting's a month off, but I'm not sure where that stands right now.
Yeah, and this is purely for environmental, upgrades. It is, money that we're requesting for CA land. I think it's a slam dunk. We should.
I agree with you, Lynn, and I also think Annie made a good point. It would be good if we got the information to specifically what was going to be involved and everything. But sure. Yeah, I'm ready to sign it.
Okay, Jess, and then Alan.
I really was just going to agree with what you said, Andy. I think I'm fine with it, but I think we need some more information.
Alan?
Is this for land that is already part of phase 1 or whatever that Inner Arbor company already controls, or is this for a phase that we haven't turned over yet?
Whoops. Oh, shoot. I'm back.
We hear you shooting, Lynn, but do you have an answer?
Okay, this is part of it's mostly on phase 1. And it is part of the, sort of the garden phase. It requires some significant stormwater management, and it needs to be done no matter what. It has nothing to do with any other construction right now or anything. It's just purely improvement to the land.
And you say it's mostly on 1. What other phase is it on?
I believe it's on 1.
It's phase 1, Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay, Dick.
This does bring up another question. I think I'm glad Alan pointed this out. We are going to have to take another look at the easement, and because we have these various phases, and we might get money for this, or phase 1, something on phase 3. I mean, we really need to spell out some changes in the easement, and that should be on a future agenda as to just what we need to do to make all this work possible.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Again, support now, I think would be, I think it's important that the CA board support, the trust in this kind of, really maintenance of the land.
Well, I also assumed that the process would be the same, and we can check this with Nina, where, like she did with the paths, where really you get the money and you work closely with CA, Dennis, Open Space, somebody that Milton assigns, and you make sure it's done to, our satisfaction too. We did pass that resolution that had conditions in it that said there were certain conditions on the easements and on the property with Inner Arbor Trust, and they agreed to that as part of our approving the concept plan. So there are a lot of safeguards that we now have, but we'll get more information from Nina.
Okay, Milton?
I was just going to say, I've had several conversations about Nina with this. I was prepared to send a letter in support of the application. I know that Nina sent off the application today. She told me that I could get my letter next week. I asked Dennis to look at the property, and we are on board with it. I told Nina that we will commit to working shoulder to shoulder with the trust and the contractor, and make sure that we provide our expertise. I think in my opinion, I think it's a good idea, and I was ready to support it, but there's no point in me sending one if the board is going to send one.
Alan?
Yeah, I guess I want to go. I'm not familiar, Jenny, with the safeguards agreements that you referenced. Do we have a list of these somewhere? I don't. The only thing I ever remember was a year or two ago when we conditioned pathway money on our approval of the pathway.
No, this is the board actually voted about whenever we voted to approve the concept plan and get rid of
that was our last meeting, wasn't it?
we put conditions on it because some of us had some real concerns. There are approximately 4 or 5, and we can get you, I'm sure Steph can get you a copy of that and the whole board one so that you can look at them again. But the idea was to have some safeguards in place. So, you know.
Please consider this a formal request for such a document.
Yeah, we actually discussed it a lot and then voted for it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. If you want a formal request, fine. This is phase 1. It really is part of the playground, though the playground, we're not doing that right now. It's just simply environmental, you know.
I hear you. For me, that's separate from the question of, I hear a claim that I don't recall, that we have made some agreements with Inner Arbor Corporation that I don't recall us making, so.
Well, it was a resolution or amendments to the concept plan done by the CA board because board members felt strongly that we wanted more conditions on the concept plan. There were at least 4 or 5 added to it that we felt CA needed as safeguards in this relationship.
Well, thank you, whoever's taking board member requests.
We'll get it for you tomorrow.
We'll get it.
Thank you.
Or somebody will get it for you.
All right, anything else?
Right, Milton said he was going to send a letter. I don't have any problems with that happening. If there's no objection, why don't we just say, send the letter?
Good
I
idea.
agree. Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, if you want just Milton to send it, that's fine.
Well, we're not going to be back dealing with this for 2 weeks, and you know, so let's just, you know, this is the fastest way to get going with it.
All right, if that's okay, we'll just let Milton and Dennis handle it.
Yeah.
I was planning to do that anyway. As I said, it's in phase 1. We have looked at it. We believe it's a good idea. We don't have a problem with it, and I was going to go forward with it.
Well, run with it.
So I suggest after you say, you know, just send the board a copy once you send the letter.
I will.
Okay, and we can send our own letters if we like.
Oh yeah, you're all free to send a letter. All right, that is the end of the work session topics. Chair's remarks. Hopefully you read the copy. Any questions? President's remarks. Milton, anything you want to?
No, everyone just keep going, keep moving forward. We're a year into the pandemic and things look better on the horizon, but we still need to get there.
So any questions for Milton? No, don't see any. Proposed new topics, any? No, don't see anything there.
And besides the ones we already said need to get on the agenda for next.
Oh, right. Those are already. Although I'm not going to put the Inner Arbor one on since Milton's sending the letter.
Right.
Just. All right.
Just Andy, I think the only one is the legislation.
Yes, that's on. Right.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Wait a minute, how about the budget? The cash issue?
Right, that's coming up because we're going to talk about it.
With the third quarter report.
Okay, as long as that's included, that's fine. Thank you.
Right, third quarter report's already on.
Okay.
All right. That's it then. That's all. Hearing no objection, we will adjourn at 9:05. I want to thank all of you for turning out, and also want to thank you for getting through the meeting before our 10 o'clock deadline. So, that's good because we've had so many meetings this week. It's like, so many sessions. So thank you all. Good night.
We have meetings tomorrow.
Yeah, well, sessions, right. Take care.
We have to report those meetings.
Not yet.
Yeah, on next.
Yeah. I mean, when the meeting, we report these things at our regular meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Everybody.